All right, I'm recording and I'm ready to go.
All right then. Welcome to the podcast. That's it. All right.
Thank you. That's it. Do you record an intro afterwards and stuff? Is that the
Yeah.
how you do it? Yeah.
We do.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right. Yeah. So I'm willing to dig into any questions you might have and hopefully give some good, tangible, actionable content for your audience. So thanks for having me on.
Nice. Yeah, Millie's been reading a book last week. I've been watching some videos.
Hey, good.
So we definitely done some research for it.
Good.
Really good book. Found it really useful. There's so many things that I've been doing wrong, and I think a lot of people do wrong. Just sort of plucking numbers out of thin air and thinking, "I'll do." I'm sure that'll work.
Hoping
and
for
when
the
you
best.
when you actually think about it and you sit down and you work out the different costs and your burn rate and the production costs and things like that, which I do think is difficult when you're young as a designer and you haven't necessarily got like the overheads that an established freelancer would have, or obviously a design agency. How would you go about like sort of working out your production costs when you don't necessarily have that many overheads?
Yeah, it goes to that second variable is market value in the book. So we talk about three different variables. One is production cost, one's market value, and one's client budget. And when you're talking about figuring out your rate, you do want to compare your hourly rate to the market value, which is what are other people like me charging for this same type of work? What does the market bear? What is the threshold that the market will spend for someone like me? And so somebody like you, Millie, recent graduate, solo freelancer, you're not an agency, you don't have a bunch of employees, you're not in some big fancy studio. So you need to determine your rate based on what are other people in the UK, in US, in Germany, and other countries similar economically to you and similar economically to your clients. What are other people charging as a rate? And so when you don't have overhead, you calculate your production costs still, because you do want to know what your bottom number is. Because when your best friend comes to you and wants you to design their wedding invitation, you have to sit back and say, well, I'm not going to overcharge them, but I got to know that I at least have to charge them
enough to make money.
$20 an hour or $15 an hour, because my costs are so low. I got to at least charge them enough to cover the time I spend on this. So you can go down low if you want to, but you should be looking at the market value of your work. And it's, what do other people charge for an hourly rate? $40, $50, $75 per hour is probably in that range. $40 to $75 per hour is a good range that you'll find tons and tons of freelancers charging in that threshold. And then you just kind of pick where you want to be in that spectrum, knowing that your costs are $15 per hour. That's what it costs you to do anything. So even if you charge $40 an hour, you're still making like 110% margin on your production cost rate.
Yeah, I think that's important. And also, as you say, like comparing yourself to other people, how would you go about if people aren't necessarily transparent with their prices, how much they're charging? Would you ask people, or is it the place you can go to find out? Or
people are more transparent than what most people think. You just graduated from university, so you have 5 best friends from your studies, right? Super good, friendly, good friends. Ask them how much they're charging. Hey, what are you charging? What's your hourly rate for freelance work? Or what do you charge for a logo design? What are you charging? And they'll say, oh, I'm not really sure. What are you charging? And then between the two of you, you can talk about the numbers. And then one person will say, oh, well, I heard that John is he's charging $800 for a logo. And then somebody will say, oh, I heard that Sally is charging $700 for logos. And then you and your classmate can start talking about what prices you've heard from other people. This is how you start to understand market value when you don't have a lot of experience bidding projects and knowing that threshold. When you find it out when you're doing projects for clients, you find out what the threshold is, because you realize everybody's green lighting projects at $1,000, but when I upped my price to $1,500, I started getting no's and I started not closing it. So you start to understand this budget threshold, or the market value threshold. You start to get it when you have experience and you've done this so many projects. But in the early time, talk to your classmates, talk to your friends, talk to other freelancers. You're on this podcast with Mark. Talk to Mark and say, hey, Mark, what do you think people charging for logos these days? And you just start to get your own market research by talking to people. And don't be afraid to ask them. People are a lot more open to talk about it than I think what most people assume.
Yeah, I think that's definitely true. I think people think there's a bit of a taboo still, I think, about asking. And I don't know if it comes across as you're trying to undercut them or trying to remain competitive. I don't know. I think there's that worry always in the back of my head that people are going to be like, why would I want to tell you how much I'm charging? That's my business.
Because you'll tell them what you're charging. And
yeah, exactly. I would always say it. So I suppose you got to...
Yeah, you tell them and they tell you. And now everybody starts to have a good sense of what the market bears.
Yeah, it's definitely something we need to keep talking about is pricing in the industry. Again, I do think it's not talked about enough. And there's some sort of surveys, like, see designers and illustrators create surveys each year about how much people are earning or what sort of jobs they're doing for people.
Yeah.
So that's helpful. But yeah, when you talk in friendship groups, I think that's the biggest thing. And if you don't have any friends to talk to, there's a podcast we did with Dave Clayton about making friends. So go and check that one out.
Go make some creative friends. Yeah,
it's good.
It's a good little plug. But I think it'd be beneficial if we started off by saying how much we charged. If we're going to be open and honest, I'll start if you don't want too many.
No, because I keep changing mine. I'm still working this out.
Good. Well, you can tell us the ranges of where you've been working it out. That's good. That's good, Mark. Let's talk about that.
Go on, Mark. You go first.
Yeah, and then we can sort of then we can address ourselves and realize how much we should be charging. So I've been doing freelance stuff for 3-ish years now, and charged everything from £15 for a full-on brochure to my latest job, £1,200 for brand guidelines and a logo, which is maybe still not enough. Maybe it is too much. I don't know. We'll talk about it. But so yeah, it's in that range. And now that I've got a job, I'm finding myself more comfortable in charging a bit more because I don't have to take on the work. And that's a big thing for me, is that because I'm doing extra work and not having to get paid for this from this job.
You're not desperate for it.
Yeah, so I can charge a bit more. I feel more comfortable charging a bit more. Whereas when you're yourself, you've got no extra work, no extra income. You want to take all the money you can.
Yeah,
and I definitely felt that in the past. So yeah, I mean, if we go by logo design as a standard sort of measure for how much we're pricing stuff.
Yeah, let's do logo design. And I will tell you that if I was getting paid £1,200 to do a logo design, I would probably be bouncing off the walls because that seems so out of my reach
as well
at the moment. Yeah. But I just did a brand guidelines job. Sorry to jump in, and I'm just going to throw it out there because it sounds silly now. Doing a brand guidelines job, so that's logo, sub logo, some print design, patterns, fonts, colours, all of that sort of tied in. £250. It's my most recent one.
Everyone starts, right? And so let's break down actually what it is in the what I've been given as well, because that will help rather than just saying logo design. So it was 3 concepts. Concept being 3 different ideas behind the logo, not just 3 different versions of the same idea. Brand guidelines, 25 pages. Obviously, some of them are picture images and divider pages, but 25 pages goes for everything. Type, spacing, print design, spacing, and all sorts. Social media, extra assets, and then what else? Yeah, backgrounds, giving them social media headers, that sort of stuff. So yeah, it's quite a lot of stuff still, and it's a lot less than an agency would charge for it. But obviously, yeah, less costs and less worry for money, I guess. So yeah, what about you, really? What's your standard?
Yeah, so you say you start with 3 logo concepts. Yeah. So I do 4. So similar, with an initial mood board step before that as well, just to make sure I have the idea right. I did purposely price this one low because it was one of those scenarios where I really wanted the client, because it would be ongoing work afterwards as well. So I did purposely underprice. But yeah, so that was logo, submark, 2 submark logos, and then pattern design.
What do you mean submark? Sorry.
As in like an alternate type logo, as in
stacked versus horizontal, black and white.
Oh,
yeah, or like one like it's in a circle that you can use for social media profiles, and then like sometimes I do like oval shaped ones, or like just for different uses. So two alternate logos, pattern design, font selections and provision, color palette, and then a brand guidelines document, which could be anywhere from like 5 to 25 pages depending on how much I want to put in it. But I can tell you already, because I'm one of those people, that I'm halfway through this job on the concept stage at the moment, and I just sent over the logo concept, said I'd do 4 but ended up doing 8 just because I had so many ideas. So already doing more work than I should have done, and probably I'm already at a loss because of that. So yeah, perhaps I should be factoring that in.
Lots to be discussed.
What are your thoughts on that, Mike?
How much did you charge for that, Millie?
$250,
which that's pounds, so pounds to dollars is
probably about $350.
Yeah, exactly. It's just a little bit higher on dollars, right?
Yeah.
So okay, so my feedback for both of you is that you guys are given so much work for the money.
Yeah.
Sheesh.
That's so funny.
I knew you were going to say that.
I've been there. My first freelance job, when I got out of college, I charged the client like $250. I did their logo. I built an entire website. I designed and built the whole website. Now this is like late 90s, and so it was a different world back then. But I did so much for the client because I was young and hungry, and I didn't know where to price things, and I wanted the work, and I needed the portfolio pieces. And so I was just going for it and just charging whatever I thought was a good deal for me. What I would be happy making this much money. So that was the guiding precept at the start of pricing. It was, how much do I need to make this worth it for me? Now, there's something that you're both doing that is valuable to you, even though your price is low. We get value from projects beyond just what the client is paying us. You just described to me amazing case studies. When this project is done and you blow it out in a case study, the work you're doing will look like it cost $5,000, $10,000 of time, because you're doing so much patterns and sub logos and a 5 to 25 page brand guide. I mean, you're doing so much. It's going to look like a huge, great project. And that has huge value to the future of your business to start upping your rates to future clients. So I think for the listeners of this and for both of you, it's okay to know that the value you're getting from the project, some of it is monetary compensation, 250 pounds. But the real value is this case study that you're going to be able to use in your marketing that will allow you to start upping your prices to future clients. And I think we got to remember that, and it makes us feel less bad about the low ball price that we just gave all this work to a client for.
Yeah, well, definitely. For people like me, obviously just coming out of uni, I am looking for the portfolio building work. I want to, when clients come to me and I know that I'm going to be able to charge a lot of money, I want to be able to say, look, this is a project that I did, this is the result, this is what it did for the business, and that sort of thing, which at the moment I can't necessarily show to a client.
Yeah.
So they're not going to want to pay as much money anyway.
Exactly. So, okay, so let's finish talking about pricing on these things. I'll give you the perspective from, I outsourced to a lot of freelancers in my agency years. I hired a lot of employees, and I'll give you the perspective of what I would expect somebody to charge for the type of work that you just described for me. So if I was getting that amount of work for less than $2,000, I would think that it was a great deal. I would be looking at it saying, oh my gosh, man, I can't believe they're doing all this for less than $2,000. All the way up to $10,000, $15,000 for that scope of work. At my agency, we were charging $6,000 for a logo design. It was just the logo. It wasn't the brand style guide. It wasn't the patterns and textures and all the things that you described. We weren't doing any of that. It was the logo and the logo family. So yes, the logo, and then alternate versions of the logo for smaller, stacked, or oval, or whatever you were talking about. So we would do the alternate versions as well. So a logo family, we were charging $6,000 or $6,300, something like that. One of the things that we did, this was at the agency I sold to. So I sold my agency in 2015, went to the new agency, and I started to analyze all of their pricing structure, how they were pricing their projects, their proposals, and I retooled a lot of the operations of their agency. And what I started to do, we had a dedicated bid writer. All he did was write proposals. That was his whole day, every day. And I worked a lot with him. And I did this analysis of all the logos we had done in the past and how long they took to do and where we were pricing our projects based on other people in the market. And I remember going to him saying, okay, we were charging $5,000 for a logo. I said, every logo from now on is $6,000. We did not greenlight a smaller percentage of logos from when we changed from $5,000 to $6,000. There was no greenlight percentage drop as a result of a $1,000 increase in that, which means to me that we were not pushing the market value of the work. When we were charging $5,000, every single time we charged $5,000 for a logo, we were leaving $1,000 on the table that we could have charged the client for, because when we upped it to $6,000, we still greenlit the same percentage of logos that we had before. Then I went to him and I said, you know what? This was like the next year. I said, every logo that we bid for $6,000 now is $6,300. We're just going to do $6,300. That's the number now. Again, not one drop not one change in greenlight percentage to go from 6 to 6,300. But if you do 50 logos in a year, 50 logos in a year at $300 more each, it's $15,000 more income to your agency. So just these little things, these little increases can mean a huge amount to your bottom line. So my recommendation to all the people listening to this is watch your greenlight percentage. So every single logo that you do, define what that project is. Let's just say it's a logo. So you have 10 logos that you did last year. How many of them did you greenlight? 9 out of the 10. At what price? Let's say it was $500 per logo. So at $500, I'm greenlighting 9 out of 10 logos. That to me says that you're not charging enough.
Right.
That you're greenlighting too many. You're better off greenlighting 5 out of 10, 50% at $1,000 and do less work for the same amount of total income.
Yeah. That makes sense. It's almost like a process, like a trial and error type.
It is.
Try something, see how it works. If it's working too well, put your prices up.
Yeah.
Not working well enough, put them back down again.
Yeah. And for both of you, I would say right now, this very second, add 50% to every price that you offer. So if you were going to bid 250 pounds, you're now going to bid 375 pounds for the exact same work. And you're going to make 50% more money. And you're not going to see any difference in the green light percentage. You're still going to get all the same quantity of projects that you got before. You're just going to be making 50% more money.
Yeah.
So it's confidence, isn't it? Like, I mean, first of all, just to clarify, green lighting, does that means the client takes on the project?
Yeah, getting approval, winning the project.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
So for me, not charging more is down to the confidence thing. And whatever the price, whatever stage of your pricing, how do we become more confident in that?
So it comes from understanding your numbers. And that of my pricing book, price creative services with confidence is the subline, and win more bids, make more money. Though that's the subline. Price creative services with confidence, win more bids, make more money. Pricing creative services with confidence has everything to do with understanding your numbers. And if you know that all your friends from uni are charging $1,000 for a logo because you talked to them and asked them, and you know that you had 4 clients who greenlit a logo for you for $1,000, your last 4 clients, and then you sit down with a new client, you are very confident in saying to the new client, I charge $1,000 for logos. You're confident because you know that your 4 friends from uni charge that, and your last 4 projects you charge that and won the project. Now all of a sudden your confidence goes through the roof because you understand your numbers, you understand market value, you understand what your green light numbers from the past, you have experience that tells you that this is the right price. This is a safe price for who I am as a freelancer. So you got to understand your numbers. That's the thing. And when you don't, then you sit in the table and you're like afraid. You're afraid to give the client a number. You're afraid to say anything because you don't know. You don't know.
I suppose when you understand the numbers, you can justify why you're charging that much.
Yeah.
And you know it costs me this much to do it. I know that other people are charging this much.
Exactly.
And I know that if you were to go to someone else, they would charge you this much.
Exactly.
Then you can sit down and be like, this is a fair price to ask for.
Yep.
Whereas when you're just picking a number out of the air and you don't know whether it's you should have charged £500 or $5,000 for something.
Exactly.
Then the confidence is just
it's just not there at all. Yep.
Yeah.
So the penny's half dropped for me because I really like that, and then that's made a lot of sense. But the other part of it is being honest with. Okay, so I may talk to Millie, or I may talk to people that I know my friends and doing sports design, illustrations, and that sort of stuff, and I think their work's like 10 times better than mine. So then what? Because someone isn't going to pay. Maybe that's when they don't get the job, but maybe someone's going to pay different amounts for different things. So I'm not going to buy a coffee at Starbucks and pay the same price as a local corner shop sort of thing.
Yeah. So, okay. So let's talk about that for a second. I have a hierarchy of why people buy. And at the bottom of the hierarchy is price. So the very bottom of this pyramid, the pyramid of why people buy. Price is the very bottom. Some people don't go to Starbucks because it costs more than going to the gas station, or what do you probably call it? The petro station? What do you guys call it?
Petrol station.
Petrol station.
Okay. So you go to the petro station to get your cup of coffee, and it's way cheaper than Starbucks. And some people don't care about Starbucks because they're happy to pay less for the petro station coffee. They're price shopping. And it is the very bottom of the reason why people buy is based on price. The next tier up on that is that people will buy for convenience. They will pay more money because it's easier to get, or it can hit a certain timeline. So take, for example, you have 15 minutes between meetings, and the nearest petro station is a mile away, and Starbucks is right next door to where you're standing. You will pay more because you only have 15 minutes. You'll pay more to get your Starbucks coffee because it's right there, convenient, rather than drive to go get the cheaper coffee at the petro station. Now, if you had 5 hours of time, you drive the extra mile and save your $2 on your coffee and go to the petro station, but you didn't have it. So convenience, you pay more for convenience. And inside of design, creative services, we see this when one designer can hit a deadline and the other one can't. The client will pay more to the designer who can hit the deadline rather than the one who can't hit the deadline. The deadline is Friday. One designer can do it by Friday for $1,000. The other designer can do it on Monday for $500, but the client has to have it on Friday, so they'll pay $1,000 to get it on their deadline rather than wait 2 or 3 more days for Monday. So convenience is the next one up on what people pay. So price, then convenience. The next tier up is quality. People will pay more for higher quality than for lower quality. They will pay more for higher quality. Now, if you produce better quality than the other people who are like you, and the client does not care about quality, all they care about is price, then they're still going to buy the lowest price. They're going to buy the cheap price. Some people are price shopping, and even though your quality is better, they're not going to pay it. Mark is this with his coffee. Starbucks coffee is arguably better than the petrol station coffee, but Mark doesn't care. He just wants the cheapest price. He's price shopping. Starbucks can't convert Mark because Mark is a price shopper with his coffee. He's a price shopper with his coffee. Okay, the next tier up above quality is relationship. If you have a relationship with the client, they will pay more to purchase from you than if you don't have a relationship. And I talk a ton about relationship marketing. Tom and I have hammered on this in the BizBuds podcast. But relationships, my whole business was built on relationships. It was these clients who became my friends, and they loved working with me. And I had clients that would literally make up projects to send to us so that they could spend their annual budget. They would say, I had one client come to me once and say, hey, we have 20 grand left in our budget this year. What do you think we should do? I want to spend it with your agency. And man, it was the relationship that was everything on that. They bought from me because I had a relationship with them. Now let's go back to the Petro coffee example. If Mark, are you married, Mark?
No, I'm not married.
Okay.
No.
So if Mark and the cute barista at Starbucks had a flirty relationship, Mark would go to Starbucks every day because he liked building this relationship with the flirty barista who knows him by name, and they have their little banter, and it's part of his flow of his day, and he's going to go there because he has a relationship with the person who works there, and he will pay more because of that relationship. He'll pay more to buy the higher priced coffee. So this is kind of how that happens in relationships in design. And this is why you've got to build relationships. They don't have to be flirty relationships or anything like that. They can just be genuine friend relationships, genuine connections as friends with your clients, but they will pay more to work with you, and they will greenlight projects with you because of that relationship. And then at the top of this pyramid is reputation. If you're selling based on reputation, then you open the door to huge dollar projects. Let's take Michael Beirut and Pentagram. Michael Beirut has built a reputation over years and years, decades of time, and works at one of the coveted cool agencies in Manhattan, and they can charge $1 million. I'm not kidding. They can charge $1 million for the scope of work that Millie just described to us right now, that she's charging 250 pounds for. Why can Michael Beirut charge $1 million for that, and Millie can charge 250 pounds? It's because Michael Beirut has reputation.
It's because he's Michael Beirut, yeah.
It's because he's Michael Beirut. It's not even necessarily because he does better quality work. Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. But it is the reputation that people will buy. And then when you get to that top of that pyramid, people who are reputation shopping, they don't care about price. They'll wait longer to get it. They don't care about convenience. They'll wait 5 months to get it from Michael Beirut instead of Millie being able to do it by next week. So they don't care about that. They don't care about quality. They perceive that Michael Beirut's quality is going to be high end and Millie's quality is going to be high end. Quality isn't the differentiator. They do care about quality, but it's not the differentiator in their decision. And they don't care about relationship. Because if you have the budget to play in the reputation game as a client, then you don't care if your best friend owns an agency. You have the budget big enough to use Michael Beirut. You're going to use that for the Michael Beirut budget if you're reputation shopping. So this is kind of the hierarchy. And once we understand this, then you start looking at your clients a little differently. And you can say to yourself, why is this person buying from me? Are they buying from me because I'm the cheapest price? Are they buying from me because they believe that I produce higher quality than the other people bidding on it? Are they buying from me because I answered the phone and everybody else didn't? It went to voicemail, so I'm convenient because I answered the phone when they called. Are they buying from me because they're my friend from uni and now they're a creative director at some agency and they're kicking freelance work out? Millie, you're going to have this in your future when your best friend from uni is a creative director at some cool agency, and all of a sudden you start getting a ton of freelance work from this person because you're best friends.
Yeah.
So Mark can't win that project because Mark doesn't know that person. Maybe Mark even does better work than you, but Mark is not going to win that project because you and Sally are best friends and she's the decision maker over there. This is what happens in the future of your business as a freelancer. Over time, you build a reputation, and then it opens up the doors to start charging much higher prices for the work that you're doing. You become a Draplin. How much does Aaron Draplin charge for logos? How much would Aaron Draplin charge for the project that Millie just outlined for us for $250?
I don't even want to think about it.
At least $100,000. If he's not charging $100,000 for that, he's undercharging his market value.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
That's really interesting. And like you say, it's made me think about what the clients I'm working with. And I think why they're
coming to us.
Okay, so now here's something to think about in this hierarchy. If you think of this hierarchy, what do you have right now as a brand new student out of university? Well, you can play the convenience game. You can play the price game. You can sometimes play the quality game. But if you have a certain design quality and somebody else with 10 years of experience has the same design quality and the same price, who's going to win?
Yeah, the experience sort of comes into that quality.
Exactly, it comes in. You can sometimes play the relationship game, but you're not in the reputation game yet. You haven't gotten there yet. So over the next 10 years, 20 years, you're going to be building a network of people. You're going to be building a lot of relationships. You're going to be building your reputation, and your prices will continue to go up, up, up. But right now, you're in a situation where most of the time, you have to play the price game. You don't have anything else to offer in the eyes of the client as the differentiator between you and somebody else. They're going to say, okay, quality, check. Convenience, check. They do quality and they do convenience. Why should I hire Millie over John when John has 10 years of experience and a little agency with 2 employees and Millie is just by herself a recent graduate? The only reason that you're going to win the project is because you are at least $1 cheaper than John. You have to play the price game a little bit at the start of getting freelance work, because it is the differentiator between you and the other people, because you don't have the other boxes checked that are higher up on the hierarchy.
Really that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. When you break it down like that and you realize, because my question was going to be, while you were saying all of that, sort of how do you raise your prices above the sort of prices that I was describing and Mark was describing, when for a lot of freelancers and young designers, your clients are going to be small local businesses. They're not going to want to pay 10 grand for that sort of package. They're going to want to pay 200 quid for it. They're not going to have that sort of budget. But then I suppose once you have the reputation and you have the relationships with the bigger companies and your quality of work goes up, I suppose, so does your audience and your client base. So
does your price. And demand. So let's talk a bit about supply and demand. Supply and demand is like the economic principle number one that we have to understand. And if right now Millie said, I don't have a lot of work, I would do whatever for 200 quid. I love that word quid, by the way. So it's kind of like it's like the British version of bucks for dollars, right? Yeah. So Millie doesn't have a lot of demand, so her supply is bigger, which means her price is lower. She has a lot of supply and low demand, so her price is lower. Now, as Millie says yes to more and more projects and starts getting more and more things coming in, and then her supply is less, her time to do work is smaller, all of a sudden, by nature, her prices go up. Yeah,
because I'm not as desperate to get each job.
You're not desperate.
Which I'm starting to notice already, and I've only been full-time freelancing for a couple of months. Exactly. And I've already noticed that because I've taken so many of these smaller jobs that I've perhaps underpriced, that when new jobs come in, I'm quite happy to price them higher because I'm not so reliant on getting them.
It's supply and demand 101, and you're seeing it, and that will happen in your business over time. So I think a big takeaway for the people listening here is don't feel bad when you're playing the pricing game at the start. Don't feel bad that you're reducing your prices to fill up your supply so that you can have enough work. You can increase demand by charging less. You increase demand for your services. And then as demand increases, you increase your prices to slow down demand. And you're balancing this out over time, and your prices continue to go up, up, up. And you just are playing that game. But you got to start it somewhere. And you're right now graduated out of uni. You've been doing the freelance for a few months, and you're starting to see some more demand, so you can increase your prices over time as a result of that. I think the people get in trouble when they don't increase their prices, and then they're just running around like the headless chicken thinking, oh no, how am I going to get all this done? Because they haven't upped their prices to slow down demand. They just keep saying yes, 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 and they get so much work that they can't get it all done. The quality suffers. They run into problems like that. But as long as you increase your prices over time to balance out supply and demand, then what you're charging 250 quid for now in a year is going to be 2,000 quid. You like when I say quid, right? Don't I? I sound like such an American when I talk.
This making a lot of sense. This might be the clearest conversation I've ever heard about pricing.
Yeah, definitely.
It's made a lot of sense to me.
So making a lot of things click.
Good.
Yeah. Market value. What do you know what the current market value is for a 20-odd-year-old?
Okay, what's the market value for a 20-year-old? Okay, so let's talk about that on hourly rates or logo prices, or what are we talking about?
Well, I know you don't like hourly rates. Well, you don't like charging hourly.
Yeah, but it's a good baseline to understand market value. Sometimes it's
and I suppose you've got to have your burn rate and that sort of stuff. So
well, okay. So let me just spitball some numbers to you. So if I were at my agency and I was outsourcing work to a recent graduate in the UK, I would think, okay, UK prices. This would be my mindset. I would think to myself, UK prices are going to be similar to US prices for hourly rates. Somebody with a little bit of experience out of university, they just kind of graduated and they're just getting started. I probably would think, I expect them to come in probably around $40 or $50 per hour in the rate that they would be charging to my agency. That would be the number that I would expect. And then I probably would look at it and say, okay, $60 an hour on the higher end, and maybe some of them who don't understand their numbers very well, maybe they're $25 or $30 an hour that's where I would be thinking. Okay, so
Are you hiring by any chance?
Mark raises his hand and confesses his lower end of that rate.
Yeah, I was too embarrassed to.
Yeah, Millie thought it, but didn't raise her hand. So that's the rate. Now, this is how an agency outsourcing looks at it. Because at my agency, my hourly burn rate, the cost to run our business, was $78 per hour. That was my bottom cost. I wasn't making a penny off of the project unless I was charging $79 per hour or more. So our hourly rate at my agency, we were charging $120 for a while, then $140 per hour for hourly based stuff. So it goes up over time based on your production costs. But me at an agency with $78 burn rate, if we were charging $100 per hour, I was only making $22 per hour on the work that people were doing. $22 an hour. You could charge $30 an hour and probably make $22 an hour of profit because your burn rate is probably $8 an hour. It's not very expensive. You don't have a high cost of living. You don't have a bunch of employees and things. So you can make the same profit as an agency, even though it's at a lower rate. And I think this is something to remember when you're pricing your work, that even though it's $30 an hour, $40 an hour, you might still have the same hourly profit margin that an agency does with 10 employees that's charging $110 an hour. So don't feel so bad about the hourly rate that you're charging, that it's low in the market. Think about your profit percentage in that hourly rate and compare your profit percentage or your profit dollars in that rate compared to other people out there. And a lot of times you're very similar. Very similar. These agents or these freelancers that are charging $60 an hour and they have $15 an hour of cost and they're making $45 an hour of profit. That's a good business. And that's a better business than a lot of agencies out there that cost $80 an hour and are billing $110 an hour. They're making less per hour in profit than the freelancer, than the solo freelancer. So, okay, so that was a long-winded answer to the question, where would I perceive rates from an outsourced perspective? The next thing that I do is I look at it and I say, I know my agency burn rate is $78 per hour. And if I can hire Mark for $40 an hour, I'm actually making more money off of Mark than I'm making off of my internal teams, my internal employees, because my burn rate is so high. Yeah. So Mark costs me less than my internal people cost me to produce work. And that has a lot of appeal. So when you're pricing things to agencies, for example, you can come in, even though you're higher in market rate than what a client might charge you, you're still so much less than the agency rate that it makes sense for them to hire you.
Yeah.
So those are just a few thoughts on.
Good thing to think about.
On that.
Yeah,
go ahead. Mel.
Sorry, go on, you go. I was going to completely change the subject.
No, change the subject or I'll just keep rambling on about random prices.
No, it's just reminded me of something that I did really want to ask you. Obviously, a lot in your book you say about extracting client budget. Mm-hmm. Now, as you just said, businesses want to make money and they want to get things for as low as they can. Mm-hmm. So how do you know when you're extracting a client budget, whether you ask them or you, I don't know, throw a ballpark number out and say, does this fit for you? How do you know that they're being honest and they're not just trying to get a really good deal?
It shouldn't matter to you as long as if you understand your market value and your production cost, then if they're getting a better deal than what their budget is, I look at that and I say, good, because now they have extra budget to give me more projects. As long as I'm confident in my
and you're happy with what you're charging.
Yeah. And if I'm confident in the profitability on my number, then I don't care if it's if they save $3,000 of budget that they were planning to spend. I'm not a fan of
Very good.
Jedi mind tricks trying to extract every little penny I can out of the client on this job. And, you know, the mind games of that, I hate that stuff. If I'm comfortable with my profit number, then I'm going to go into the project happy. And even though the client maybe is saving based on what they had originally budgeted, I'll just look at that as, okay, I came in $3,000 under what the client budget was. For me, the client is going to love me $3,000 more because I saved them $3,000. So I just bought, in the sacrifice of income, I bought increased loyalty and love from adoration from the client. And that has value to me. Going back to the idea that we talked about at the start, there are other things other than monetary compensation that have value to you as a designer. And love and adoration and being known as a go-to affordable solution for a client, that's huge value moving forward for long-term.
You'll beat out competitors as well, because you won't be, if they've been honest about their budget and
you're being honest about your price. You're being honest. You're not gouging them. You're not trying to extract every little nickel you can out of them. You're being honest. They're being honest. They're going to love you. And then the next project that comes around, guess what? They got 3 bids on the project you just won. The next project that comes around, they get 1 bid, and it's Millie. They're like, oh, find out how much Millie's going to charge for this, because they're committed to you now, and you're the one choice instead of 1 out of 3. So there's tons of value in that in the future of your business, to land clients in that kind of position. And I did a ton of that at my agency too. I had clients that were 10 years, 15-year-long clients. Some of my very first clients, I was still doing work for them 13, 14 years later. And they were the very first client I ever had. And it was because it was just operating from a place of integrity and honesty on my numbers. I wasn't trying to gouge them for every penny I could. I would come in under budget when I could for them, even though it was less than what I could have charged. I still was making plenty of profit on it, and I never felt bad about that.
Yeah,
that's great.
I think that's really important. I was going to say, I think it's really important, the whole idea of being affordable, but also knowing and being confident in yourself that you're charging enough.
Yeah.
You got to get that balance, right? Because obviously it's so easy to say, okay, right, I'm going to be way under budget for everyone and then only charge $250 for logo projects.
Then you become a Fiverr designer. And Fiverr designer, the challenge with Fiverr, as an example, is that everybody there is price shopping. So it's what they call a race to the bottom. It's that you get 10 bids and one is 80, the next one's 79, the next one's 78, the next one's 77, all the way down to $70. The $70 person wins because the people on there are price shopping.
Exactly.
And you don't want to play that game. So you got to get yourself out of the price game in our hierarchy. You got to get yourself out of that as soon as you can in your business.
And become valued for the other things,
Exactly. But let's go back to supply and demand. If you're marketing yourself on Fiverr, you have no demand from anywhere else. All you have is supply. Then you're going to play the price game and market yourself on Fiverr and bring in anything you can to have some demand so that you can start upping your costs over time.
Okay,
so once you've got to an okay level, how do you get out of the pricing game then? Is it just keep doing work and keep building up relationships, local area, and get more knowing your local area, and then eventually work with more people, and then you can keep going up? I don't really.
Yes. It's a great description. That's exactly it. It happens organically. Right? It happens organically over time. So first of all, you should be increasing your prices over time based on supply and demand. More demand means you start charging more to slow down the demand. And that's good. Let me give you an example. I was greenlighting at my agency. I tracked it for the whole run of my agency. I sold my agency at 13 years. And in year 1 to 13, I greenlit 61% of the projects that we bid. 61%. That's a good number because I don't want it to be higher. If it was higher, then I probably was charging too low and I was the deal for everybody because I was greenlighting 90% of the work that I bid. So I don't want it to be higher. But if it's lower, then I'm probably charging too high for the type of clients that I'm attracting. So I feel like somewhere between like this 50 and 70% is a good range of where you should win your projects, the percentage you should win. And over time, you should be tracking that number. You should know that number for your business. What's your win-loss ratio for your business from year 1? And Millie, you're just getting started now. Start tracking this now, and you're going to have a story to understand about your business in 5 years. You're going to be able to see what your 5-year win-loss ratio is, and you're going to be able to check it every quarter or once a year. You can check that and see, oh man, I'm greenlighting 90% of the projects. You know what? I better up my prices so I scale that down to about 60% because that's a healthier number. 60% is healthier than 90% because 90% says you're leaving a ton of money on the table by not charging.
But then it could also be, is there an argument to be made that it's not necessarily price that is winning or losing you those?
It could be. But I would guess that, so you it's a case by case basis. You got to do your analysis. Mm-hmm. Price is most often the determining factor.
Yeah. Because I suppose every other thing, whether it's the experience that you've got, the quality of your work, those things will then impact the price anyway. So say if someone comes back to you and says, you haven't got enough experience for how much you're charging, then you should have charged lower, essentially. Good. So even though it was the experience, it was the price that was then too high based on that.
Yeah, that's good. A good example.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
There's one thing that I'd like to do if for the last bit of the podcast is do it, like go through a potential like a scenario. So like I don't know if I want to be I don't know if I could be the client and someone else be the designer trying to price the project.
Good.
But I think this would be really useful to people listening. So okay. I'll be the designer person, right? So my overheads, I'm living at home, working another job, but say that I don't have the other job. All right, Millie, Millie, you must do this.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Mark is Millie. Just like I gotta know who's who, and then I'll be Mark, and Millie can be me. All right, let's go.
All right.
No, Millie,
I'm going to correct
you be the designer.
Right. But, I'll be the designer.
Okay.
But in general, like we're young people living at home. We don't have any overheads at all, really, apart from what we want to go out and spend as discretionary spending, sort of cinema, takeaway food, going out with friends. Maybe you have rent to pay. Okay, what's that? I pay £150 a month, which is nothing to my parents. So that's pretty much nothing, right? Okay. So say that's my overhead a month. That's it, pretty much. I don't have to pay electric, I don't have to pay water, I don't have to pay for food unless I want to buy food. So client comes in.
Okay.
Okay.
So let me take you down. I'll take you through this price strategy. Okay.
Okay. Great.
All right. So client comes in and they want a logo.
Yeah.
Client comes in, they want a logo, and then Mark has a conversation with the client and says, "Okay, let's talk about your logo. Let's talk about your business. Let's talk about the needs you have." And Mark does a discovery session with this logo client. And then Mark says, okay, great. I'm going to work up some numbers and I'm going to give you a price and I'm going to present a proposal to you on Friday if you're available. Let's have another Zoom call. Okay, then Mark goes back to his office and he says, okay, I've got to figure out my price. Now, the first thing Mark is going to do, he's going to calculate his production cost. And he's going to do this based on his overhead right now, which is 150 quid per month.
Yeah, like
right?
Ridiculous.
So if we multiply that by 12, Mark's life costs him 1,800 quid per year.
That's mad, isn't it? That's mad.
1,800 quid per year. Now,
that's
Mark,
signed football cards you buy.
Now Mark is going to divide this number by 2080. And that is going to tell Mark what his hourly burn rate is, what his cost per hour to sit in his chair at 40 hours per week, 52 weeks a year. This is how much Mark costs, and it's 86 cents. What do you call cents in
Pence?
86 pennies. Pence?
Yeah.
Pence?
Pence.
Okay. Both. Yeah.
86 pence. So that Mark has the lowest overhead of any human in the world. Pretty much. So Mark, 86 pence. Now Mark is going to say, okay, I've got to figure out my production cost to produce this logo. How long, Mark, would you spend on a logo project that we just invented here?
You also know what? I've just realised about other costs to take into factor. Like Adobe.
Okay,
and
so he doesn't want to be
Just
so
for
cheap.
the
Let's
purpose
just do
of
this for just, okay, you got other costs. Yeah, you have software
Yeah.
subscriptions and computers and things like that. So let's
It's still
round
not
up.
going to be more than like £2.
Yeah, let's round up, and it's £2. So Mark costs £2 per hour in his production costs. So that's what we're going to round up just for the sake of this. Now, how long are you going to spend on a logo, Mark?
Good question. This is another thing I don't think a lot of people have in mind.
And I'll go, a logo will take me like 3 hours, and then it doesn't. It takes me like 3 days because of all the extra stuff that I haven't factored in.
Let's use that. Let's use 3 days. So 24 hours of production time. Now 24 times 2 is 48 pounds. That's Mark's production cost on this logo, which means Mark can make a profit as long as he charges 49 pounds or more. Now, the reason we don't use this as our only variable when we price things is because obviously that is way too low. If Mark was charging 49 pounds for a logo, he is competing with the very bottom priced people in all the world. And Mark doesn't want to play that game. Mark brings more value to the table than that. Mark has great design skills, a degree. He knows what he's doing. He has way more value.
No degree.
We're still pretending. So Mark has way more value. So he's not going to charge 48 pounds on this logo. Now he needs to take into account another variable. The other variable is market value. We started talking about this earlier. So what do other people like you, Mark, charge for logos? We know Millie.
Charge for logo?
Yeah.
Oh, don't ask me because you're going to laugh at me. I don't know. I would say other people who tell me what I should be charging would charge anywhere from £500 to £1,000.
Okay, so let's use £500 as our market value of what other people like you charge. Now, Mark, what is the average price of logos you've done in the past that a client has approved that you've won the project?
Yeah, more recently 300 to 500, for just a logo,
Okay, so 300 to 500. Well, let's use 500 there. So that's just validation of what Millie said. 500 to 1,000. Mark has gotten logos approved at 500. So we're going to use 500 as our market value number. So we have two numbers now. We have production cost is 48, and we have market value is 500. Now Mark is going to ask the client for the third variable. The third variable is, what is the client's budget? And you know this because in the meeting, you have this discovery meeting, you talk to the client and you say, oh, tell me about your business and tell me about your customers and tell me about your products and tell me about other marketing things you've done and blah, blah, blah. You ask all these kinds of questions. And then at the end of that conversation, you say, all right, well, this is great information. I love this. We're super excited to rebrand your company. What budget do you have allocated for this? Because I get the sense that you're trying to do this on a budget. We want to make sure that we're bidding this in a range that you are comfortable with. And then the client says, well, I don't really want to tell you my budget because I wanted to just find out what you would charge. That's what the client will say to you. Then you say to the client, I have more ways to extract the budget that I've shared in some videos and stuff, but we would just jump right to saying to the client, okay, I understand that. Well, let me just throw out to you the number. The last project that we did was 500 quid. And then I know that I have a lot of designer friends, and I know that they're all charging somewhere between 1,000 quid and 500 quid, somewhere in that range. Is that a budget range that you're comfortable with? Now you've said a number first, and now the client will give you some response to that number. Usually their response is either, oh yeah, that's perfect. That's great. That's perfect. That'll work for us. Or it'll be, oh, you know what? That's a lot higher than what we were hoping to spend. We were actually hoping to do it for 200 quid. That's what they'll say. So one of those two responses is usually the response you'll get from the client, but you ask. Now, if the client says, oh, it's 200 quid, then we put the client's budget at 200 for that variable. If the client says, oh yeah, I'm comfortable with that, 500 to 1,000, that's a good range for us, then you know, okay, good, client budget. We can say 750. So you just base off of that. Now let's assume that the client is cheap and they said, no, you know what? That's a little higher. We want to be 200 quid. Now you have your production cost is $48. That's variable number one. Variable number two is market value is $500. And variable number three is the client wants to spend $200 or 200 quid on this project. So you have those three variables. 48, 500, and 200. Now you choose where you want to price your project. You can say, okay, well, I know I really supply and demand. I have no other projects right now. I'm empty. I need something. I'll bid it for 200. And I know that I'm still going to make 152 quid on this project because my production cost is so low to produce it. So I'm going to make money off of it. Profitable, great. I'm happy. I'll make profit. I'll bid it at the client's budget. But if supply and demand says, I'm super busy, I don't know how I'm going to fit this thing in. Cheap client, 200 quid, and I don't even have time to go to the restroom. How am I going to fit this thing in my life? Well, then you say to the client, okay, well, client, I know you want to do this logo for 200 quid, but really we can't hit that low of a price. We need to be 500 quid. That's where we've been bidding and landing projects in the past. We really need to be in that range. So here's my proposal for 500 quid. We would love to work with you. And if the client wants to work with you bad enough, then they're going to pay a premium to work with you compared to their budget. But this is the mental game that you use to price your work based on these three variables. But if you don't know those three variables, if you don't know those numbers, you're just pulling numbers out of thin air. You don't know if you're going to be profitable. You don't know what other people are charging. You're just guessing on the whole thing, and you have no confidence in your number. At least with this, you'll know that the client is under market value, but you know you still can make a profit on them. So
it's really interesting. Those
the mental process. Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, just those three variables. I think I know from personal experience, and obviously, and speaking to other young designers, like friends from uni or people that I've met through the creative community, people don't think about those three things. Like they might think about one, maybe two if you're lucky. But I think that's so key to think of all three. It's really, as you say, it's like a process. Yeah. It's really important.
It is.
Really good advice. Really actionable.
Good. Mark is right now writing down a new pricing strategy.
Taking notes.
He's like, I got to get this down. He's making a whole new pricing strategy for his business right now as we talk.
Like revolutionized.
I am. I'm trying to work it out. So in a couple of years' time, obviously, I want to be moved out. I want to be in the real world, in the big wide world. Living my own place, and I've roughly say $2,000 a month is what I'll be spending on things, rent, from renting and food and everything. That's a more realistic number, right?
Start charging that now.
Right.
That's it.
Exactly.
Your market value, so your production cost. So 2,000 times 40, or 2,000 a month times 12 is 2,400 or 2,400 quid. 24,000 quid. Okay. So divided by 2080, and your production cost hourly rate, your hourly burn rate is $11 or 11 quid and 50 pence.
Even then, that doesn't sound as much as you expect it to be. No.
Exactly. It's not. Now that's only taken into account that takes into account that you're working 40 hours a week, 52 weeks a year, which is not realistic. And in my book, I say, okay, this is the quickest, easiest calculation, but we're really going to break that down differently. And let's say that you only work 50% of the year instead of 100% of the year. You take a vacation, you have other things that you're doing. So we're going to multiply that by 2, and you can say that your hourly burn rate is $23 per hour. And that means that you're working 4 hours per day, 52 weeks per year. That's what you're working. And of billable time. So that's more realistic. Now you say, okay, $23 per hour is my bottom number. Now I'm going to multiply that by the 24 hours to do this logo. And my production cost on the logo is $553. Now you look at it and say, oh man, I'm way undercharging. If I'm only charging $500 for a logo, I'm losing $53 every time I do a logo for a client. I'm losing $53. I've got to up my prices.
It's so interesting to think of it that way.
Gold dust.
Yeah, it really is.
The numbers tell you the whole story of what you need to know for your business.
I think as creatives, we're just so terrified of numbers.
I know.
We just hope they'll just go away if we don't think about it.
Yeah.
Which,
maybe,
when you're working for yourself, it's just
so true.
You can't think of it that. Yeah. When you actually break it down and think of it like that, it makes so much sense. And then you immediately think, well, now I know what I should be charging.
Exactly. Now you're like...
Before it seemed like something that nobody knew, that I would never know. It was like something invented by the Illuminati, how to price things. But
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But now it shows you, okay, so 500 to 1,000, let's look at market value. Now 500 to 1,000 on logos, that sounds exactly spot on. Because if your cost is $500 to make it, then to be profitable, you're going to want to charge $750, which is a 50% markup, or $1,000, which is a 100% markup. And that's good. And you should.
So we should be doing 50 to 100% markup.
Okay. So I recommend, good. This is another question. I recommend a minimum of a 30% markup. And then you go up from there. And I had projects that were 200% markup. I mean, and I never felt bad about it. Because sometimes clients paying for your expertise and for the quality, and they're paying for the value that you're going to bring to their business. Your new logo, if it puts new people into their restaurant, then it has huge value to them.
Yeah.
So they're going to make their money quick off of that. So, so 30%. So if you're doing $500, if it costs you $500 to make a logo and you times it by 30%, you're going to charge $650 for a logo as your bottom logo price, $650. And that's if you're going to spend 24 hours total production time on the project. If you are going to cost 24 grand a year, 24,000 quid per year, you're going to be charging for logos a minimum of $650 on up from there. And if you can charge $5,000 for a logo because of your reputation, then you should never feel bad about it.
Okay. That's another thing I actually picked up on from your book, is like there was a quote page saying, don't ever feel bad about charging just because you love what you do and you're good at it, which is something I talk about with other creatives all the time, that even clients can sometimes pick up on that. And they're usually red flag clients saying, well, why are you charging so much money? Why are you so worried about the money when you love what you do?
Yeah.
It's like, well, I'm still trying to make a living out of it.
Because this is a business. This is not me making ceramic pots in my house. I love doing that too. I used to love doing that when I was in college, but I don't do that now. But let's say it was art.
Yeah,
I did a post
not a hobby.
recently. I did a post recently about design and art. And sometimes design is art, and that's when we love it. We make up our own stuff and we design it and we make it all cool and make a cool poster. Did you make that thing on your back wall there, Mark?
That one's Geo Law. I did that illustration. And then that one.
So Mark made that for the fun of it. Everything is work in progress. Everything is work in progress. He made this.
Oh no, that wasn't me.
Oh, that wasn't you? Okay, well let's.
No, that's Brad Dimmerlinick. But this one here's me.
Okay, good.
Not
that
me,
one's not design. That's more art. Anyway, all right. Well, let's say Mark made cool posters for his office, and he did design, and he did those just as art, just for fun. And that your compensation is the fun, creative expression. But design, what we're talking about here, and what your listeners are thinking and doing, design is a business. This is a business. This isn't about making art all the time. This is about making profit. And at the end of the day, a business needs to be profitable. You'll have some jobs when you can still do super cool, fun art and make profit on it. You'll have other jobs that the client is a nightmare. They want a unicorn logo for their gas station or whatever. I don't know. They want some kind of crazy something that you're like, this is not a good idea, but that's what they want. And sometimes you're just going to do it for them because design is a business and you need to make money. So you're going to do it for them. You're never going to put it in your portfolio. You're just going to accept the project and make your money and move on. That's design as a business. And then every once in a while, we get to do design as a business and art when the client wants something super high end. You're looking at it thinking, this could be an award winner. I'm going to submit this for awards and I'm going to get some amazing case study out of this. And the client's still paying me big budget. This is awesome. I love this. This is just every box is checked. Sometimes you get that. So I think a lot of designers get caught up in the idea that every project needs to be some big, fancy, perfectly done thing, when in reality, some projects just need to be sufficient to yield a return for the client and generate profit for you.
Yeah. This is it. Honestly, this has been an amazing conversation. It really has.
Really helpful.
It's opened my eyes up. Hopefully, a lot of people listening as well. It's just really it brought a lot of clarity to it all and understanding. Okay, so Millie, do you have anything else before we go into the last?
I did actually have one more question written down.
Oh, good.
So, Mike, I'll let you answer this how you want to, whether you want it to be pricing related or anything else.
Okay.
But what do you think the biggest mistake that you see young designers making is?
Okay, I'll make it pricing related.
Okay.
I think the biggest mistake I see young designers making is overcharging for the market. And I'll give you an example. I had somebody who came in, wanted to freelance for me at my agency. And you'll remember that my agency internal costs were $78 per hour. And this person wanted to charge $75 per hour. And when they were talking, I was sitting there thinking, okay, their hourly rates probably got to be around 40 or 50 bucks an hour. And they came in and they went, higher market value for a freelancer in the US, somewhere between between $75 and $100 an hour are kind of your upper tier freelancers. And he wanted to charge as a just graduating student, the top market value, because he heard somebody say somewhere, oh, you should be charging $75 an hour. Well, yes, if you have experience, you've built your reputation, you outproduce other people in quality, but this person had no experience. His quality was okay. He had no relationship with me. He had no reputation. He had none of the things that were higher on the hierarchy of why people buy. So he had to be playing the price game, but he was trying to play a reputation level game.
Yeah.
And I think that's a mistake that some people hear. They hear somewhere, you should be charging $10,000 for a logo. And then all of the freelancers all around the world think, what? I'm way undercharging for my work. I got to be charging $10,000 for a logo. And then they go and bid $10,000 for a logo, and their green light percentage becomes 0. And they wander around the world wondering, why am I not green lighting any projects here? It's because you're overcharging for your phase in this industry. So create demand by charging reasonable at the start and increase your prices over time. And yes, someday you can be charging $10,000 for a logo. But I was happy at my agency charging $6,300 for a logo and making $3,000 every logo we did in profit. Great business.
Yeah, definitely. That makes a lot of sense. So obviously there's the whole argument that we've had about making sure that you're pricing enough, but then your quality and your experience and your relationships and all that have got to warrant that price. You can't just go, right, okay, I'm going to just throw it right at the top and say, yeah, well, people charge for logos that much. So why can't I? When actually
and you can't because you don't have relationships in those bigger companies. You don't have reputation. But if you have relationships and reputation, you can start unlocking the door to these bigger, higher priced opportunities.
There you go.
Makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Wow.
There you go. Answers my question.
Okay.
So the last couple of things we'd like to ask at the end. First of all, what's your best purchase under $100?
Oh man, my personal best purchase under $100. Can I give you 100, and this can be anything?
Yeah.
How about $130?
Design related or no?
$130. My best purchase are my AirPods. Honestly, I use my AirPods. I have them in my pocket every day. I don't carry my wallet in my pocket all day long. I don't carry my car keys in my pocket all day long, but I always have my phone and my AirPods. Oh my gosh, these changed my life. So that's my. It was a little more than $100, but yeah.
A couple of days, probably. Mine do.
Really? The battery lasts a couple of days?
More than that sometimes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Depends.
The case will give you 24 hours of listening time. So yeah, if you, and the headphones themselves are like 4 or 5 hours of consecutive listening time. And I put them back in the case and they charge up again.
Yeah, I don't use mine that often, and I actually can't remember the last time I charged them. Like, I don't charge them very often. And normally when you get them out, it's like, oh, great, they've still got like 50% on them.
So here, Mark, this is your assignment. You start charging $650 for logos instead of $500, and you use the first profit, the $150 difference you use to buy yourself a pair of AirPods.
You know what?
You're getting commission
I haven't got a pair. I haven't got a pair, but I recently bought a cheap, not AirPods, but a Skull Candy, the other brand.
Oh, yeah. Skull Candy is based by me in Salt Lake.
There we go.
They're actually in New York City. They're like 40 minutes from where I live. Yeah.
So I've been loyal to Skull Candy for a number of years, and since being at school, I've had Skull Candy headphones. So I bought a pair of their basically earbuds, thinking that'd be amazing. I love the brand, and they only last about 5 hours battery life. It's really disappointing. Yeah, it's so disappointing.
This is it right here for you.
Yeah, I'd recommend
AirPods are the one.
Yeah.
So one day.
Okay. One day means next week when you charge $650 for a logo.
Let's hope so.
Yeah.
Life advice. Have you got any life advice, Mike?
Oh man, I have so much life advice. You know, the one that I'm big on right now, and I've been asked this a bunch and I've shared it a number of times, but the one that I'm big on is when I had just graduated from university, I was so hungry to grow, and I chased my career down so hard and intensely and built my agency, and I was just always just so dedicated and into it that I didn't enjoy it nearly as much as I should have. And my life advice, especially for those of you that are just starting your careers, is enjoy the whole journey of it all. Enjoy figuring out how to price stuff right now. Enjoy living in your parents' house, Mark, and not having a ton of overhead, and enjoy that phase of life, because there's going to come a day when you have bigger overhead, you have a family to feed, you have employees, who knows what it's going to be in your future. And when you're in that phase, enjoy that phase. But I was always so focused on looking at the next phase and trying to get to the next phase that I didn't enjoy the phase I was in nearly as much as I should have. And I'm getting better at that in my life now, because I really, really love what I'm doing right now. And I love getting on podcasts like this with new people all over the world. I mean, this is my favorite of all the things that I'm doing. I love it. And so I'm getting better at that, but that's life advice. Enjoy all these different phases that you have, because your career is long. You're going to have a lot of up moments and a lot of down moments, and there's no way to avoid either of those. So just enjoy the flow of it.
That's good advice. I like that. Enjoy every moment of it.
Yeah.
It's good.
So the last question we ask on the podcast is, how do you want to be remembered?
Oh,
it's a deep one.
It's a deep one. You know what? I want, I would say that a lot of my drive now, I'm in that kind of trying to build a legacy phase of my career. I built my agency and I had that good run, but I love the idea of leaving a legacy so that I am remembered. I think that's my answer. How do you want to be remembered? I want to be remembered. I want to be remembered as somebody who accomplished things, somebody who left the world better than he found it, changed people for the better, that I had an impact on people around the world. I'm not trying to say 1 million people or 5 million people or anything. I feel a lot of value just having impact on one person at a time. I love connecting with these people, one person at a time. Millie and I have had a good connection the last few months, and it's so valuable to me. I love those connections that I'm making. I love the idea that I could probably go to almost any city in the world and post something and say, hey, anybody want to get dinner with me? And I would have somebody show up.
Yeah,
that to me is so massively valuable. And I think so this is kind of a little rambly way of saying, I just want to be remembered for making a difference for individual people in their lives. I want to mean something to individuals.
That's lovely. Yeah,
and really good answer.
Definitely done it for us.
Yeah, definitely. I think you're definitely accomplishing that one.
Good, thank you. Well, it's my pleasure for sure. Well, this is super fun for me. Thank you for having me on your podcast. I love doing this kind of stuff, for sure.
Oh, thank you for coming on. Honestly, this advice is going to be so useful for so many people. I know that it's useful for us too. So,
good.
Yeah, hopefully it will be for the listeners too.
Yeah. So, where can people find you? Check out your stuff and your book.
Yes. You can find me at More Janda on Instagram and all other social channels. michaeljanda.com is my main website. I also have a new suite of courses, freelancewithjanda.com, that I just launched a month ago. I don't know when this podcast is going to launch, but so we're at the beginning of July. I launched it at the beginning of June. So whenever this podcast comes out on your rotation, that's another.
We're not sure either.
Yeah, that's something I'm really proud of as well. So yeah, and connect with me. Send me DMs, send me emails. I love to connect with people. I'm easily approachable. Hopefully people will find that.
And we're going to give a couple of your books away as well. So if you're subscribed to the newsletter, you've got a chance of winning. So congratulations if you win.
Good.
There you go.
I'd highly recommend them.
Podcast.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mike.
Oh, thanks, guys. It was super fun for me. Thank you. You guys made it easy.